Good evening. Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the programme tonight, the latest on the controversy on the construction of a Chinese village inside Indian territory in Arunachal Pradesh. The External Affairs Ministry, which responded to our specific query, has put an end to efforts at redrawing our boundaries, soft-peddling Chinese village construction in Arunachal, and attempts to perhaps manage perception on Twitter and elsewhere. The bottom line is this, and the External Affairs Ministry statement is very clear. India will never accept illegal Chinese construction on our land. That message is loud and clear. What's more, New Delhi has conveyed its concerns about illegal Chinese construction in the past and will whenever it is required. Tonight, the very latest on the situation in Arunachal Pradesh, including a new report on the extent of Chinese construction south of the village in question. Next on the program, a techie educated at IIT was the man who allegedly tweeted a rape threat against Virat Kohli's baby daughter. Online hate is out of control in India. Swara Bhaskar joins us to talk about online hate. She herself faces many attacks online and has recently gone to the police once again. And finally, later on the program, it's a one-hour special. The very heavy rainfall in Tamil Nadu. Has anything changed since 2015 and the last floods that we saw by way of infrastructure managing the rising water levels? But first, the big story. The China border tension, with the centre responding to an NDTV report. The specific point that's been mentioned over here is this. India condemns Chinese construction activities that it has illegally occupied. China's illegal occupation is not accepted. The government has conveyed and will convey this later as well. The centre responding to the NDTV report saying Chinese construction in areas it's illegally occupied over decades. India has not accepted illegal occupation of our territory. India has not accepted unjustified Chinese claims. And as I mentioned, the centre has protested and will continue to do so in the future.
Department of Defense report to the US Congress. As far as we understand, we have taken note of the US Department of Defense report to the US Congress, which inter alia also makes a reference to construction activities by the Chinese side along the India-China border areas, particularly in the eastern sector. Reports had also appeared in the media earlier this year on this issue. As we had stated then, China has undertaken construction activities in the past several years along the border areas, including in the areas that it has illegally occupied over decades. India has neither accepted such illegal occupation of our territory, nor has it accepted the unjustified Chinese claims. Government has always conveyed its strong protest to such activities through diplomatic means and will continue to do so in the future.
Well, what we've been speaking about, and we'll bring you those details again, is this illegal Chinese village constructed in the North Subansiri district of Arunachal Pradesh. In 2019, as we'll show you, it wasn't there. In 2020, this village appeared. Now, this is in an area which has been controlled by China since 1959. But as this report explains, by changing the facts on the ground through the construction of a village which has 100 homes, China is trying to alter the status quo. How? We bring you this report. The mention in a US Pentagon report of a large Chinese village in Arunachal Pradesh has resulted in a major political battle in India, with the opposition asking the government to come clean on Chinese construction activity on Indian soil. This was a story first reported by NDTV, but what we can show you now for the first time are satellite images showing much more than just the presence of this village. They show new Chinese construction activity a further 3 kilometers south of this village, deep inside Arunachal Pradesh, backing the photos and accounts of local BJP leaders. Now, this is the Chinese village with 100 homes approximately, about 4.5 kilometers inside Indian territory in the North Subansiri district of Arunachal. While it lies in territory that both sides lay claim to, its construction is entirely illegal since it violates Article 7 of the 2005 bilateral agreement between India and China, which says, and I quote, "In reaching a boundary settlement, the two sides shall safeguard due interests of their settled populations in the border areas." By building a village and potentially populating it with hundreds, if not more, China can now unilaterally claim that the disputed territory is no longer contested. It is theirs since it has a settled population in this village. That's the worry. Now, 1 kilometer south of the Chinese village is an old Chinese border post that actually predates the village by several years, if not decades. But as you can see, it's been upgraded and has proper road access as well. That's the upgraded post. So on your left, images of this military garrison in 2000, and on your right, an image dated the 1st of November. It's been upgraded a great deal. Further south, deep inside Indian territory, there are roads, in fact several of them, as you can see. In fact, these roads are 3 kilometers south of the new Chinese village, which in turn is about 4 odd kilometers from the McMahon line. That is the border that India recognizes in the area. That's always been our position. A few months back, local BJP leaders from Arunachal Pradesh, worried about Chinese construction activity, shared photos of what they saw with reporters. We matched these with the satellite images that we've been showing you. They are from the same area. So let's give you some examples. On your left, a photo of two small bridges. On your right, a satellite image of the same. On your left, a photo of what could be a powerhouse on the banks of the river. We found this to the right in the satellite image as well. And finally, massive winding road construction activity on a steep slope. A photo on your left and a satellite image of the same place on your right. Now, in a statement to NDTV when this story first broke several months back, the External Affairs Ministry said, "We have seen recent reports on China undertaking construction work along the border areas with India. China has undertaken such infrastructure construction activity in the past several years. In response, our government too has stepped up border infrastructure, including the construction of roads, bridges, etc., which have provided much needed connectivity to the local population along the border." All right, well, joining us now, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, the former Director General of Infantry, was also ex-Chief of Staff of the Eastern Command, and Dr. Brahma Chelani, the Strategic Affairs expert, perhaps India's leading authority as far as the China situation, the China equation is concerned. Dr. Chelani, let me come to you first. For the last several days, we have seen efforts online at trying to make the situation in Arunachal Pradesh somewhat more manageable by saying, oh, it's not really bad, we've never had control over this area, by saying that our report was fake, by suggesting that it was exaggerated, by stating that it was hyping the situation, by stating that we were trying to bring down the morale of Indian armed forces. Today, the External Affairs Ministry has come out with a clear statement saying that illegal Chinese construction activity will not be allowed. Has this record been finally set straight?
Well, Vishnu, you have been doing a great job exposing Chinese village building activity in Indian territory as well as in Bhutanese territory. And the AMA statement today is a good statement. It's a response to the reports that you have been telecasting. But let's see what's happening. You know, let's look at the bigger picture. The Himalayas are becoming the new South China Sea. Copying the expansionist techniques that it has employed in the South China Sea, China has been quietly building militarized villages in disputed or Chinese captured Himalayan border areas. And if you look at the new land borders law that China has enacted, its emphasis is on the development of civilian settlements in border areas is an attempt to legitimize a land version of the Salami slicing strategy that China has successfully employed in the South China Sea. In fact, the new law seeks to advance China's so-called civil-military fusion strategy. This strategy aims to co-opt Chinese citizens and civilian institutions in support of national defense. Simply put, China is employing domestic law as a cover for unlawful actions. Vishnu, you referred to the 2005 bilateral India-China agreement. Actually, what China is seeking to do is to retroactively legitimize its unlawful actions in international law. In international law, armed patrols don't prove effective control of a disputed area, but civilian settlements do. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to act unlawfully to establish a right in international law. And according to Chinese government documents, China is involved in an ambitious plan to create more than 600 villages in disputed or Chinese captured border areas in the Himalayas.
Yep.
So we're looking at a pattern, a systematic attempt to change facts on the ground.
Correct. Right. General Kulkarni, you know, the history of this area is clear. We have reported this absolutely lucidly in the past as well, that this is an area after the Longzhou incident which has been controlled by China since 1959. They've maintained a post over here. It's not an area the Indian Army has been patrolling regularly. They've not done it for decades. In fact, to the best of our knowledge, perhaps not since 1962 has there been any very serious attempt. But the point, sir, is China has stepped up its infrastructure in the same area. The military garrison which exists has been upgraded. Roads to that garrison, and we've got these pictures over here, let's play them out again. Those have been upgraded. And then from this military garrison, which lies, I think, a kilometer south, as you can see, of that village, right, is another 3 kilometers of construction, where there was a path, it was a Chinese path, yes, but now it's a proper path. It's a road. There are culverts, there are 2 small bridges, possibly a power plant, a small one along the river. And then on a steep road, you know, there is this winding road which has been created. So it's a dynamic situation. So would you agree, sir, that it's not enough to say, oh, you know, the Chinese controlled this area in 1959. The fact is, again, they've upgraded that hold. Isn't that a worry for us?
Vishnu, thank you. And I think I would agree with Dr. Brahma, and absolutely right. The situation is definitely something with the Chinese intent doing it, and they are trying to show their intentions, and they're quite clear, number one. Number two, to say that we haven't been patrolling in this area, obviously this area is under their control since 1959. We have a post nearby, and nothing of it can be seen from there. Because all these images are satellite imageries which are there. Even if you were to stand there, you wouldn't be able to see anything that's happening on the other side. And rightly so, the satellite imagery show all that what you have been showing, and it's a fact. These are all dual purpose villages which can be used for military and civil purposes, primarily with the view that the Chinese have moved forward and they can mobilize at a very short notice because the logistics is already in place. So there is some kind of a pressure tactics that the Chinese are applying. Rightly so, the area is India's. It is illegally and lawfully occupied, but then, you know, China, they don't care a hoot for what they're going to do, and they are doing what they're doing, presuming that it is their area and their 1959 claim line or whatever they intend to do so. So therefore, you know, we are right to say, yes, it is in our area, definitely our area, because the whole of it belongs to us. There is no denying the fact, but that this particular area which you're showing is not in our occupation, you rightly said, since 1959, because that's the trigger that started the 1962 operation. However, much that you might want to do with it, because these are all integrated villages with good infrastructure, good communication facilities, complete towers and what have you, with education, medical and the shopping facilities, but yet not occupied by the civilians, because the villagers are not there. However, it is with a new purpose, I think, as I see, Chinese are wanting to win the hearts and minds of the local civilian population, and they intend also trying to tell them that this is the way they intend developing this area. But let's not get fooled by the Chinese. This area is entirely and exclusively meant for the military purposes, because 100-odd villages, 100-odd houses that have come up along in a particular row and in a fashion is indicative of what it is. However, as I said, these are all pressure tactics that will continue to be done by the Chinese, and Chinese have been saying Arunachal since 2006 as South Tibet, and that itself is wanting to say that, well, like we are saying that it is illegal and unlawful for the Chinese construction the Chinese, by the new border law that has now come into force and would allow them, slowly and steadily, they would be telling the villagers over there, look, the grazing rights are up to this particular place, which would now be actually where we are located. And that is where the yaks would start coming in and pushing in. And that's where the conflicts start between the forces there on ground and the civilian population that would be coming forward. So this is definitely
General, absolutely, 100%. Dr. Chelani, has India made a mistake in the mid-1990s in allowing LAC to creep into bilateral agreements between India and China when our stated position in the past was McMahon line is where it's at for us. There is no line of actual control. There is a boundary. Yes, of course, it's disputed. We'll keep talking about it. But there is no line of actual control. The moment we say LAC, and LAC has found its way into separate bilateral agreements since the mid-1990s, then our claim that our line is at McMahon sort of seems to evaporate. And so if the Chinese push south, as they have over here, then that becomes the LAC. And then we need to negotiate from that position. Is that not problematic?
Well, what you're saying is right. I think the fundamental mistake that India made was to agree to the Chinese proposition to put aside the border dispute and get on with trade and political relations largely on Chinese terms. That was a serious mistake. And another mistake that India made, which was the law of nature, is that any vacuum will ultimately be plugged by whoever seizes the opportunity. China is capitalizing on India's inaction over the years to plug territorial openings. For the past 20 years, I've been observing that local people and local representatives in the borderlands of Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh have been warning that China, meter by meter and mile by mile, has been encroaching on their traditional pasture lands. China's creation of militarized border villages more recently is just an escalation of the Salami slicing strategy it has long pursued. And to come specifically to the village that we're talking about, the one that was mentioned in the Pentagon report, the large 100-home village, that village came up after the Chinese media, including the South China Morning Post in Hong Kong, reported a Chinese gold rush to that area. China discovered gold in Longchu. And in 2018, the South China Morning Post ran a major story saying that China's huge mining investments and infrastructure development in that area were intended more largely to turn Arunachal Pradesh into, quote-unquote, another South China Sea. And yet we paid no attention to all these reports about the China gold rush to Longchu, about the frenzied construction of military and civilian infrastructure in that area. The village is an outcome of this frenetic activity in mining and in militarization of that area.
No, absolutely. Look, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. I'm out of time. What does one say? I mean, this is the clearest example of salami slicing on our territory. The big worry is, and one can only hope that there's nothing more which is as significant in other parts of Arunachal Pradesh. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. The young man arrested over rape threats to Virat Kohli's 9-month-old daughter is an IIT Hyderabad graduate with a history of online trolling using multiple identities, is what the police say. But to his families and friends, he was a studious person, a topper planning his future in the US. He's now behind bars.
Ram Nagesh Akubathini. This 23-year-old is behind the rape threats to India's cricket captain Virat Kohli's daughter after the India-New Zealand match. An IIT graduate, he was a topper in his district as he got into IIT Hyderabad. He quit his well-paying job with a popular food delivery app to prepare for a master's degree in the United States.
Ram Nagesh Akubathini was known to be a soft-spoken, diligent, academically brilliant, studious young man, in sharp contrast to the violent man who spewed hatred online through anonymous social media handles. The family says they knew nothing of this. and clinical psychologists say this is often the case.
Yeah, it's a bit challenging case because the accused used pseudonames to cover his identity. He was using all the technical means to hide his identity. As you know, he's a IITN, so he was using all the technical means.
Speaking to NDTV, Ram Nagesh's father, who works at an ordnance factory, claims his son tweeted the threat by mistake.
सर भी लेंस नहीं है वो क्या किया अननेसेसरी वो क्या बोलते मार्क बोले तो मार्क बोले तो वो क्या बोलता है वो टाइप किए तो टाइपिंग में मिस्टेक हुआ बोल के जब ही वो डिलीट किया खाते हैं हाँ.
The police say he used at least 3 Twitter handles with fake names and pretended to be from Pakistan, going by the name Amina, by masking his account after the outrage over his rape threat to a toddler. Ram Nagesh faces charges of outraging the modesty of a woman, criminal intimidation, and other violations of the Information Technology Act. He faces a prison sentence, a minimum of 3 years. While often online hate goes unpunished, in this case the police traced the accused and arrested him within days of receiving the complaint. The police told the court the youth has accepted he made a mistake. The Mumbai police registered an FIR last Monday after Virat Kohli's manager filed a complaint. On Wednesday, he was arrested in the afternoon from Hyderabad. The police say they had to depend on technology to reach the person behind the social media handle, as he had masked his identity and location well on account of being a techie. But with help from technology and the local police, they managed to arrest the accused in just 3 days. In Mumbai, with camera person Sanjay Mandal, Swara Bhaskar, NDTV.
Well, joining us now, a very special guest. We're joined by Justice Deepak Gupta, former Supreme Court judge, and a little while later we'll be joined by the actor Swara Bhaskar. But Justice Gupta, it's wonderful to speak to you.
Thank you so much.
Sir, online hate in this country has gone absolutely crazy. How sad is it that incredibly educated young people, IIT degrees, a potential future in the United States, a good job at one stage, have chosen to succumb to the most crass, the most base, and threaten a child with rape? It's unthinkable. It's so sad.
I agree with you, Vishnu. It's extremely sad. I just heard that this boy is very well educated and was planning to go to America. But that doesn't make the crime any less serious. He was threatening rape on an infant. Excuse me. And for what reason? That her father was the captain of the team which lost to Pakistan. You see, social media, the bane with social media is that it gives a lot of anonymity. And cowards love anonymity. If you're brave, you don't like. If you're brave enough to be true to what you think about, then you don't mind your name being disclosed. But if you're a coward, you don't want your name to come out, so you have these media, Twitter handles in somebody else's name, Facebook accounts, false Facebook accounts, etc., where you can spew hatred on anybody. You know, all of us have that, little evil self in any human being. There's a little evil self. This anonymity is providing a space to, let yourself go and think you'll never be arrested.
Yeah.
I'm glad this man has been arrested. I hope he's dealt with leniently if he's what you say he is. But a message must go to the trollers at large that if you troll people, then you will be caught and punished.
Justice
The
Gupta,
number of young ladies who are trolled today is extremely high. Forget about judges or, news media persons like you. We're all trolled. But we're in jobs where we know that we'll be trolled. But a young girl giving a support to A or B, and suddenly she'll be threatened with every sort of sexual abuse and violence. Is this the society we want? Is this the social media we want? And therefore, I really feel that the time has come that the police must, the investigating agencies must, gear up and learn the latest techniques. They have to be one step ahead of these brilliant people.
Justice Gupta, let me ask you this, sir. we value freedom of speech massively in our country. In the media, people like us over here in NDTV keep fighting for freedom of speech. And yet the opposite side of the coin, and we keep saying that, look, please don't censor the internet, please don't misuse your powers, government, to go after people who make innocent remarks. But the flip side of this is that there are horrific people who get away with this in the veil of anonymity. How does one balance both sides of this coin, sir?
Our constitution provides the answer that you can, lay down laws even to curtail freedom of speech in the interest of law, in the interest of public health, morality, and sovereignty of the country. You see, if we have one side, if somebody tweets Tripura is burning, he's arrested or threatened to be arrested. And here trolls make the most vicious remarks and nothing is done against them. This is not the first. Probably this is one of the first cases where somebody has been arrested, and probably been arrested because of Virat Kohli and Anushka Sharma, because they are a larger than life couple.
Yeah.
And everybody sort of respects them. They are held in high esteem by society. But what happens to an ordinary citizen when he or she goes to the police and says, I've been trolled?
Right.
कि हम क्या करेंगे? We don't have the means to find out who's trolled you. It's too expensive to find out. So that is where I feel investigation has to be much more scientific, so that the trolls know that they can be caught up quickly and dealt with strictly.
Absolutely. Justice Deepak Gupta, I couldn't agree more. A smart way has to be found. So far, we have not been successful. But thank you so much, sir, for sharing your concerns on this very, very pressing issue. Lots of comments and questions coming in. Shreya Singh has put in a comment on coup. The government and cyber law needs to be more strict with trolling issues. Deepali Sinha says, will this kind of intolerance still be treated as freedom of speech? Swara Bhaskar joins us now. It's wonderful that we can have her. She's somebody who's actually faced a lot of these threats on a constant basis because she speaks her mind. Firstly, in this case, there's a 23-year-old IIT graduate. Now, I accept the fact that, you don't need to be an IIT graduate to be making these threats. But at the same time, it does feel strange that an educated person looking to study, for example, in the United States, who'd worked for a good company, drew a high salary, would be drawn to making sick remarks like this.
Yeah, I think it hits us as educated people in a different way, that one among our own, or someone who could so easily have been in our own circle of acquaintance, has this really dark side. But I actually don't find it strange anymore, and I don't find anything strange anymore about the way in which hate and violence are displayed or have been internalized by us as a society and as people and as users of social media. I think the way I see it is that two things. One, we are a society, India is a society that has a rampant rape culture. We are a society that has a very, very unfortunate acceptance of sexual harassment of women, whether it's eve teasing, mild forms like verbal harassment, not mild like that, but like not non-physical harassment, or it's actually, the rape epidemic, I would call it, that we witness in our country and in our society today. That's one thing. The second thing is that, and I think that we should see the arrest of this young man, this 23-year-old techie, who's an IIT graduate, one of the most premier institutions in the country. I think we have to see that in the context of the last 7 years, where social media has been used to, again, generate a sort of hysteria, and a rampant culture of online bullying has been propagated, encouraged, organized, and allowed to flourish with total impunity as to what the people are saying, as long as it's on the side of, within quotes, the dominant discourse.
No, and absolutely. And just to interrupt you for half a second, in this Kohli issue, there was an India-Pakistan match. India played very badly. Mohammad Shami was targeted for his religion. He was targeted as an anti-national. Of course, we all are. And then somewhere down the road, Virat Kohli was targeted when he defended his colleague, and his child, his baby, was targeted as well. But the point that you make is that the dominant discourse allows you to go ahead and criticize or slam Pakistan or people, cricketers, for their religion, or people for their religion, and it's sort of okay.
There are no limits, unfortunately, as far as this mentality goes. And I do want to make the point, see, as far as the cricket match and people winning and losing, I mean, it happens all the time. Maybe I don't, you know, I understand that there's a lot of emotion that is connected with cricket in India, especially India-Pakistan matches. But it's also very obvious the way in which, you know, certain sections use these matches to whip up a certain kind of a narrative, a certain kind of, which really is an ulterior sort of motive to help their own politics, right?
Yeah.
We saw that happening in this case.
Yeah.
I personally think that Virat Kohli showed great leadership, and you know, I just want to say this at this moment, that he was a good captain to stand up for his teammate, and he made, I think he said the right things, he made the right points, he called out the Islamophobia by pointing to it, not avoiding it, and he said that our brotherhood cannot be shaken, that we're 200% behind him, and I think that is a great role model, that's a great example, and he really lived up to his, you know, him being a national icon. But I do want to say that, you know, the fact that not even a national icon like Virat Kohli was spared should make us pause and think. Hate is a fire that cannot be controlled. And I really hope that the people who use this kind of hysteria take a moment and reflect and understand it, because it will come back to bite them in an uncomfortable place at some point, as we have seen in the case of our late External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj ji, who was trolled repeatedly, twice at least, by supposedly people who you would think were the supporters of the party that she was part of, or the ideology that she represented. She was not spared. Our Prime Minister, and I've seen this, I've actually seen this, our Prime Minister, when he tweets Eid greetings,
is trolled.
If you read the comments, he is not spared. So I think that it is important for us to understand that this kind of a culture of such rampant abuse and hatred, it is a fire that you cannot control.
Let me ask you this. How do you deal with people who threaten you? Do you feel physically unsafe?
I don't yet feel physically unsafe. Don't put the thought in my head, Vishnu. But that's because I come from, you know, I come from a place of privilege in that I have the resources to make myself safe. I live in a fairly safe colony. I have people around me. I have a team around me. When I'm in outdoor places, or when I'm shooting in where there's lots of crowds, I have a security person with me. So I'm privileged. But I will say that you know, what happens online, it can very quickly translate. The hysteria that is generated online or in electronic mainstream media can very quickly translate into on-ground activity, as we saw in the case of Ram Bhakt Gopal and the CNRC protests and who shot at students. So I think that the idea that, oh, it's okay to say whatever you want, to commit a cyber crime online because it's just online, it's not okay. And I have tried, of course, I don't always read all the comments, but there have been cases where I've actually filed FIRs because I just feel that it's...
What came of those?
Well, one of them is actually quite recent, against a YouTube influencer who's incidentally also in his early 20s. I just want to ask the young men in India in their early 20s, what is going on? You know, I mean, we should really think about what it is as a society that we are teaching our young people. What is it we're allowing them to do? What is it that we're condoning in
Has
our
there
young
been any
people?
progress in this case or in other cases that you've faced?
I must say that in my case, the Delhi police did take cognizance. They found that it was, you know, that IPC sections were violated in the kind of tweeting, trolling, and the kind of trends that were being started against me, and they filed an FIR. I gave a statement in the Patiala House Court. There have been cases when police, state police and police departments across India have acted, and I want to really congratulate them for those moments. Delhi police when they took cognizance of my case, Vadodara police when in July 2020 the comedian Agrima Joshua was very badly trolled and threatened with videos by a young influencer called, I think his name was Shubham Mishra, and he went by the thing Badass Shubham Mishra. And I mean, he was literally threatening to gang rape her and encouraging other young people to do the same thing. And the Vadodara police took suo motu cognizance of the case and arrested him. So I think it's really important for us as citizens also to see our law enforcement, uphold the law.
So let me ask you a final question, which is this. We now have new IT rules. Objectionable tweets are meant to be taken down in a finite period of time, but there are so many objectionable tweets then that no one really knows if that can actually happen. But the other side of this is that the government can actually allegedly take advantage of the new IT rules and can stifle the freedom of speech. Now you champion the freedom of speech, and yet you are attacked because of some warped notion of the ability to write or say whatever they. How do you deal with these both sides of this debate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right that it's there are two sides. I do want to say that I think that there is a huge misconception amongst us in our society, in our public discourse and culture, that freedom of speech means the freedom to abuse and the freedom to basically say things that qualify as harassment and or hate speech. Freedom of speech is not the freedom to make hate speech or to be inciting hatred or violence against individuals or communities. I think that I also saw, I think that the junior IT minister, Mr. Chandrasekhar, made a statement yesterday about, talking about how that the government, will do more, that they will not allow sort of these kind of problematic posts, and the social media cannot become a space where just rampant abuse is happening. And I really sort of hope that he is successful, and I'm glad that he has said that. But equally, it's interesting because I feel that a lot of the times the sources from where these hateful tweets are originating are so many times followed by
people who are
leaders
in positions of authority,
the ruling party,
exactly.
and people who are our elected representatives. I was reading an article on my way here which said that when Sushma ji was trolled, in that case, I think there were two cases, one where she issued medical visas to some Pakistani patients, and one where a visa officer a passport official was transferred for his bigoted behavior or something. And in those cases, in the second of that case, 41 parliamentarians of the BJP were following 200 plus accounts, 8 of which were being followed by the Prime Minister.
Right.
So my point is that when you have, it's become a Frankenstein's monster that now I feel even the government is not knowing how to control. As you're saying, it's a deluge. So I think that there has to be some recognition of the fact that you have bred this Frankenstein's monster. Secondly, as you said, it's okay to have even very, very intense political disagreement. This is, we are a diverse country where, Amartya Sen says we are the argumentative Indians. So that has been part of India's culture. But you cannot break the law.
No.
There is no politics or partisan kind of ideology in that. Nothing should be greater than the rule of law.
Would
in
you
this
like
country.
to see a system on Twitter, and this is sort of crystal gazing, where anonymous users aren't allowed, where everybody has an identity which can be tracked?
I think that you don't have to go that far.
That would end the hate.
I don't think so. It wouldn't end the hate. So much of the hate that I get is literally
from people who have their
recognizable people.
Right.
Some of them are blue tick verified handles. So my point is that the hate is not going to end by that. The hate, I mean, I don't know if the hate will end in a hurry, but I think that if we create a culture of accountability, and that is what the arrest of this Ram Nagesh Akubatini has done, or the arrest of Shubham Mishra, or in my case, the Delhi police, filing an FIR against the YouTube influencer. if we create a culture where people understand that they are accountable for their actions even online, where young boys like this Ram Nagesh, who, I mean, what a way to ruin your own future.
Life,
I mean, you could have been on a flight to the US, and now you have this
chance. You may well be in jail.
I mean, you're in jail right now, and you
could
deserve to spend some more days in jail, actually. So I think that if we create a culture of accountability, maybe young people will learn to be a little more responsible if they cannot be humane.
Right. Well, we'll leave it over there. Swara, wonderful speaking to you. My
Thank
first
you.
in-studio conversation in 2 years. Thank you very much indeed. Well, there you have it. Swara Bhaskar speaking about online attacks, what she's faced in the future. But the thought of a little baby being targeted in the manner in which Virat Kohli's child was, that's just ghastly, absolutely. Where are we headed as we communicate online in the manner in which we do? We're going to take a short break at this stage. Come back with the very latest. Welcome back. In Chennai, several areas remain waterlogged for the 5th day, while the red alert has now been lifted and the airport has resumed arrivals. Why does the city go through this every time rainfall is more than average, and what should have been done to prevent such a situation in the future? That's coming up in our discussion. First, this report.
An elderly woman requiring medical help rescued by boat as residents in this low-lying pocket of Velachery in South Chennai woke up to knee-deep to waist-deep waters. It rained about 16 centimeters overnight, 11 centimeters above normal as the depression over the Bay of Bengal approached the coast.
இனிமே யாரும் உதவி கேட்டால் அவங்களுக்கு உதவி செய்யறதுக்காக நாங்க தயார் நிலையில திரும்ப எனக்கு இப்ப இறங்கி நின்றா இடுப்பு அளவுக்கு தண்ணி இருக்குது இன்னும் போக போக அங்க ஆள டெப்த் கூட இருக்குது.
These are traditional low-lying areas. During every monsoon you see so much of flooding here. And look at this, water has entered all these homes. In fact, this house is shut now, but water has gone inside, and this is the case everywhere. This is part of the IT corridor in Chennai. Several communities from IT professionals like Rishi, meat seller Zubin and ordinary workers had to wade through waters.
Trying to stay outside only because we are feeling not safe.
வெளிச்சேரி ஆயிடுச்சு இப்போ ரொம்ப கஷ்டப்படும் கரண்ட் இல்ல ஒண்ணுமே இல்ல.
The Narayanapuram lake at Pallikarna is overflowing. This road connecting the IT corridor and the Chennai airport is shut. Authorities have asked residents around the lake to vacate as the overflowing water has entered homes and shops. One reason are high-rises like these, which have come up on the catchment area, giving no space for water to drain away. It seems there are few lessons learned from the 2015 floods.
The urban growth, you cannot stop it because 80% of population is going to live in urban areas in next 20-30 years. It is going to have, we have to pay a price for that. So definitely, I'm paying a price now.
The city has already received 100% higher than the average 25 centimeters rain for October. Met Office says rains will ease after the depression lands later this evening. With Suresh in Chennai, Sam Daniel, NDTV.
Well, joining us now is Saravanan, the DMK spokesperson, and Anjal Prakash. He's an author who looks very closely at climate change. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Yeah.
Mr. Saravanan, let me come to you first.
Yes.
What's really changed since 2015 is what any number of people in, for example, Chennai are asking. How would you respond?
Yeah, see, nothing has changed, Vishnu. The problem is so much of money has been spent from 2015, almost around 5,000 crores. Prior to 2015, there were the stormwater drains which were built by the British, which was more than sufficient. We never had such deluges. But after 2015, people have woken up to this new thing of climate change and extreme climate situations, extreme rains, extreme weather conditions. So after 2015, the then ADMK government has gone into it. So a lot of money has been given by the central government, the banks.
Yeah, but what is the impact of that, sir, is my question.
That is where I'm coming.
There doesn't seem to be any impact.
Yeah, that is the whole problem. They have spent 5,000. The ADMK, previous ADMK government has spent 5,000 crores, and there is no impact on the ground. Imagine spending 5,000 crores and the same situation. And let us also not forget that the rains this time are a little bit different in the sense that from last Sunday until now, only now there is some respite from the rains. It has been continuously raining, almost 40 centimeters in 5 days. This is not average, above average. This is extremely above average, and this is an extreme situation. But when we are speaking about that kind of money being spent, then this kind of exigencies should have been taken into account, and there should have been a foolproof system which ensures even if it is going to be 50 centimeter rain or 60 centimeter rain, there should be a way for it to drain.
Okay, let me just go across to Anjal Prakash. Mr. Prakash, every city has its capacity. Drainage systems are one aspect. Construction on catchment areas is always bad news. Is Chennai in a situation right now where this is something which is bound to keep happening because it's been overbuilt in areas where it should not have been?
Vishnu, the issue of infrastructure and the kind of unplanned urbanization is one, but I would like to focus here on larger issues of climate change. You look at the disaster which has started this year itself. We had Chamoli disaster followed by Cyclone Yas, Cyclone Takute. We have floods in Kerala, and we have to understand that all these issues are interlinked. Now this is after 6 years in 2015. Can you hear me? Yeah. So in 2015, the flood which has led havoc in Chennai, and this is 6 years after that. We have a similar event which is happening.
Mr. Prakash, I'm going to come back to you. The line's bad. We'll fix that line, come back to you. Mr. Saravanan, do you believe that this is only linked to climate change? Even if it is, what exactly can your government do at this stage?
Yes, Vishnu. See, definitely these events. See, Chennai used to witness rains, heavy rains. Last 100 years, there were so many floods, so many flooding events, so many cyclones which has destroyed Chennai. But right now, what we are looking at is, in 2015, they said, it was once in a 100-year event, and 5 years later, we are almost near that event. So definitely this climate change. And the thing is this, now we have to anticipate that this is going to be the norm. Every other year, there is going to be 50 centimeter rain or 40
hands up in the air, there's nothing else that you can do.
No, it's not that. I'm coming to that, Vishnu. We have taken charge the last 6 months, and what we can do in the last 6 months, we have done that. We have desilted, we have ensured there are no clogs or stoppage inundations in the canals which drain the water. That is what we have done, but that was not sufficient. So we'll have to do something else. And the government, the chief minister has announced that he will look into this particular issue, the way that 5,000 crores, where it has gone and how we can augment the system. Okay. What the earlier government has done is, they have not aligned it with the earlier system. The earlier system was nearly perfect. The British stormwater drains, they did not align the new drainage system, what they have built, with the British system, what was there in vogue.
Okay, I take that point. I want to go back to Mr. Prakash. We've got his line. Sir, you were talking about the larger link to climate change. The thing is, sir, it's difficult to ask this question because one could say that this is a one-off weather phenomena. Or is this, in Tamil Nadu, part of a larger problem in terms of climate events?
Yeah. So I was saying before we went to a break is that these freak weather events have been an interlinked event. If you look at it from the Himalayas, what is happening to our coastal cities, what is happening to our, semi-arid regions, all these issues are interlinked. Now, there's one report that I was part of in 2019, the IPCC report on oceans and cryosphere, that has very categorically said that, the frequency of these events will rise. And you have to see, Vishnu, that these are unprecedented events. And Mr. Saravanan has said very rightly that, say 300 millimeters or 200 millimeters of rainfall happening in just 24 hours is not something which is normal. So it's a new normal that we have to cater to. Now, issue of infrastructure, I would like to focus here is about climate resilient infrastructure. Now, this has been very much part of our debate in climate science and the IPCC reports. And we are saying that all the new projects and the older project has to take into account the climate issues. And that is where the problem lies. And we really feel that this issue has to come up now. It's not too late that we wake up. There's a wake-up call. Each event is telling us to that.
All right. Well, each event is telling us that situation, and it is quite clearly a frightening situation over there. Mr. Saravanan, for people who are watching this program, can you give them an assurance that next year something will be done to prevent a situation like this, or even 2 years down the road?
Yes, Vishnu. That is what I was saying. The Chief Minister has assured. He had said so much of money had been spent. We have identified what are the issues. What are the issues that are plaguing the current system? We will be able to rectify that. This government has the will. Next year, probably 2 years down the line, we will see, even if it is going to be for 40 centimeters rain or 50 centimeter rain, we will ensure that there is a system in place which drains the water. Within a short period of time, there won't be waterlogging like this.
Vishnu, can I just come in here? Because this is a point that I would like to make here.
Go ahead.
Can I come in here?
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
No, I'm saying that what Mr. Saravanan is saying, I'm sorry to say, but I actually don't believe him, because this is going to happen year after year after year. And you will get me on the same program next year and you will find that the similar solution will be there. That is because the root cause of the problem is not being solved. And the root cause is that we need to take this as a climate crisis. And the crisis means that we have to go extra mile to deal with this crisis. And this is not at the level of Chennai. It is also about the pan-India problem that we are having. We are having events after events, and we have to deal with this in a very different way. Now, I just like to point out one issue is about the, where is climate change issues are going to. It is going to the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. In this whole issue, you have only one what I would say, the backyard desk in the Ministry of Environment, MOFCC, which deals with the issue. Now, environment and forest is definitely one issue, but climate change is a much bigger issue. You need coordination. Now, for example, here, the issue is about coordination with the urban infrastructure. At some point, when you have floods in the rural areas, it is about the coordination with rural development ministries.
And you believe, sir, that coordination is missing, and that we need to step up our efforts at dealing with this at the level of scientists and managers and governance as well. I take that point, sir. I think that's absolutely important. I don't think any of us disagree with that. I'm sorry I'm out of time on this program, but thank you, Mr. Prakash, very much for making that point. We'll take a short break at this stage. Hopefully the weather will clear up soon across large parts of Tamil Nadu, which remain flooded. Water levels will go down. Most importantly, hopefully there will be no loss of life.